This episode is brought to you by the CityCX newsletter, a new tool for strategies and a guide for cities to connect better with residents. Subscribe now at citycx.info. Oh, hi, I'm Dana Birchman, and welcome to Oh Hi Stories. If you've ever tried to build trust with your audience, break through the noise online, or figure out what role social media should actually play in your work, then this episode is for you. I'm joined by Joseph Porcelli, professional neighbor and leader of government partnerships and crisis response at Nextdoor. Joseph has spent over a decade helping cities use technology to foster real connection, and not just around feral cats or mystery fireworks. Nextdoor is a platform I've championed for years because I've seen firsthand how powerful it can be when cities use it intentionally. It's a free tool built around verified local voices that can help governments gather feedback, share timely updates, and reach residents where they already are. In this conversation, Joseph and I explore how cities can deliver better customer experiences, build trust at scale, and use neighborhood-level insights to inform smarter policies. We talk about public meeting fatigue, the power of proximity, and the shift from one-way communication to real connection. Welcome. I'm so happy to have you as my guest. You know, I might be one of the number one fans of Nextdoor in the world, I would say. I was trying to remember when we first crossed paths. I think it was about 11 years ago.
Sounds about right.
When I was working in Gilbert, and I remember meeting you, and I remember discovering Nextdoor, first of all, and thinking, what in the world? Why would more local governments and city organizations not be using this tool to engage with people when it's free? You know, they're verified residents. You can go directly into their inbox. I just thought it was the greatest thing ever. And I remember meeting you, and here we are over a decade later, and you're still doing this great work, and so happy to have you as my guest.
Thanks for having me, neighbor. I really appreciate the invitation, and I'm honored to be on your podcast.
I know we should jump right in and let our listeners know that if they don't know Nextdoor, or they think it's only a place where you complain about a cat that you don't know or fireworks going off, that's really not the case. And especially now, I know you guys have just rolled out, literally last week, a new app, and it has quite a few new features. So talk to me a little bit about that. And then I'd love to back up and talk specifically about your journey with Nextdoor and what you've experienced over time and where you see this headed.
Yeah, we've made some really exciting enhancements to the platform. There's three components to it: alerts. We've included news publishers now, and we also have faves powered by AI. So when you think about all the things that are happening in different communities, and you think about government communicators, there's only so much capacity to put every little thing out. The community, on the other hand, wants to know what just happened. Why is that smoke billowing off in the distance? Is that a wildfire? Is it something else? I don't know. And so Alerts uses the power of technology to bring together weather alerts, power outage information, safety updates from different sources, and share that into the newsfeed. So if you want to know what's happening in your community, you can turn to Nextdoor to see those alerts, to hear from your neighbors, and to get that factual, authoritative information from public agencies as well. And so we've rounded out the content that's available just to make it more useful and more complete. And that's really exciting, especially having been here for a long time. We've constantly listened to what neighbors and public agencies are looking for and how we can be helpful. And as a longtime employee, I'm really proud of this new release. I think it provides a great, comprehensive ecosystem of information to help make more informed decisions. And then playing into that, news publishers. Now there's over 3,500 publications on the platform, and journalists are professionals whose job it is to tell stories and keep people informed. So it's another layer of information, and maybe a city may not have capacity to write something, or it may just be outside of their purview, but the local journalist is going to tell that story. And it's just, I'll be honest, I stopped watching TV news years ago, local news, but on Nextdoor, I see it. Like I'm consuming more TV produced news and from different newspapers than I ever have. And what's really neat about this is we've done it in such a way that it works for Nextdoor, it works for neighbors, and it works for the publishers. We drive traffic back to publishers' websites. It drives more engagement on Nextdoor. And I find I have a much better sense of what's going on, which I appreciate knowing, because we're all really busy, right? And there's all these different demands on our time. Now in this app, I can find out what's happening from lots of different perspectives. And then finally, when it comes to faves, we've got 14 years of data and we're using AI. So when I search, where's the best place to get a bagel? Wally's is going to come up. And there's so many people that have loved it over time. Proximity builds trust. And on Nextdoor, hearing from your neighbors really matters, right? And having all that data available to quickly find something. And you may have seen, hey, where do I get this? Instead of having to ask all your neighbors, you've got it. You just do the search and you got all that information. So I think that's a better overall user experience for folks. It's more efficient and you just get lots of trusted data that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. There's so many things that you said that I can really tack onto. One thing in particular is I remember when I started my time in Gilbert, Arizona as the chief digital officer, one of the main questions we were asking residents was, what do you want to know more about? And one of the key things they said was, I don't know where to find information about our local football team. Did they play well? Were they in the state championship?
Right.
I don't know where to find this information. And a lot of times with the newspapers now, even behind paywalls, you can't find that information easily. People aren't getting newspapers in their driveway anymore. And so where does that information live? And I always talk about this. I think it's so key. It doesn't mean that people don't care. It's not that they don't want that information. They don't know where to find it. And I remember when you contacted me or we had the first interaction, you were like, you guys have more users on this platform than any large size city in the country. And I said, yeah, because the average resident age, even though we had 250,000 people living there, the average resident age was 32. And I knew they were using Nextdoor. I knew they were using the app. When you have people coming to you and commenting on Facebook, you don't know that they're verified residents. You don't know that they live in your community. But on Nextdoor, you do. And so this was always a tool that we could use to customize information, at least from the city side, whether it was emergency or not. And I'm also a big proponent of not engaging with your residents only when something goes wrong, which is another reason I love all of these examples you've just given is positive ways that residents and government can interact with each other and get information. And you give them a tool to do that. And you can customize it to certain areas of your city. And I just always, even when I talk to other cities now, I still tell them, you got to use Nextdoor to get feedback too. If you want to know what your residents think about something, not just one-way information about pushing out alerts or road closures or whatever that might look like, but if you want to engage with them, you know they live there, you know how to get them easily, you can get a response from them over a weekend for free.
That's right.
This is a free tool. And so I love this. I love how all of these integrations and the new changes that you guys are making, I think you're exactly right. I think of the way that I use other apps. You're consolidating this. When I go to a city, I want to know food. Food. You hit me with the bagel. That's all I need to know. So you are figuring out how to do that. And I think you're also amplifying other people's messages, which is something critical that Nextdoor does, right? They take either the city side message or the journalist now who's trying to tell a story and figuring out how to get that information into more people's hands. So I love it.
That's right. One thing I'll add too from a GovTech perspective is we've just also announced that public agencies can see these alerts that are going out from these different sources. So they can add context, maybe the situation changes, maybe a journalist got something incorrect, and they have the ability to see and also weigh in, which I think is really helpful. So neighbors are getting more information and the ecosystem can participate. Government PIOs, social media managers can see all those things that are going out and participate as well. And I think that's really critical. We've always heard from public agencies, we'd really like to be able to see what other people are posting in our jurisdiction. If you're a town or the county post, or maybe the state posts something, and now you get that information, right? So it helps make more informed updates, communications, helps keep everybody on the same page. And I think I tell people Nextdoor is an important tool in your toolbox to help you reach lots of residents in specific places. And now I'm adding and see what other agencies from within and outside your organization and other sources of information are publishing. So you have more of a complete 360 view now. So you can, in terms of that narrative, make sure the city's perspective is represented in an accurate way.
Yeah, I love that. We use the platform all the time for our police department. And what was so funny is I remember putting content there early on, like video, and we'd get 20,000 views on a video on Nextdoor. And our content did just as well on that platform as it did on others. And people were always kind of surprised by that. And again, back to that idea of pushing the information, but then also from a survey perspective, getting feedback. We use Nextdoor to help name our city park. You really want to go where your residents are. I always say, meet them where they are, go to their inbox.
That's right.
The best way, unless you're going to wait for them to come to you and sign up for your city newsletter, is to go to them in their inbox through Nextdoor, right? And I used to always really encourage other people I talked to, but we used it. And I can't tell you how many times we would need information quickly, like feedback on something. We've gotten feedback on an issue related to scooters over a weekend using Nextdoor to give a data story back to inform our mayor and council on a policy decision that they were about to make. And what they thought the residents wanted was not what the feedback said on Nextdoor that we got. And I remember I said, can you just give me a long weekend and I can quickly and easily use Nextdoor and put it out on other social media channels as well. But back to this idea that from a resident's perspective, they're trusting that source too. And so they're more likely to engage with it and actually take the time to answer a survey or answer a few questions. And cities, this is what, if any people are listening, they need to understand. You just said it. People are busy and they're not going to take the time. They want to give you that feedback. They want this information. They want to engage in their neighborhoods.
It's got to be convenient. You can't give them 2 days notice and ask them to show up at 7 p.m. to weigh in on something they don't fully understand, but you've got their attention. When you talk about what we call polls on the platform, in a way they democratize engagement, because there's always those loudest voices at the community meetings, right? You have to be a diligent facilitator. You got to have your time cop, your tangent table. Everybody's got a chance to give input. But here I think it's a less, I mean, let's be honest. Nobody in the history of time has ever woken up and nudged their partner and be like, guess what, boo? I get to go to a community meeting tonight. That's just not the case.
Amen.
But it's
Trust me, I had to go to them for 12 years and it was, not by choice.
From my time years ago working for Boston Police, I often joke that I'm a recovering community builder and I have post-community meeting stress disorder. So I've gone to so many of those. But I think the public does too. And coming back to my point here, it's easy and comfortable to give input and to weigh in here. And when you post a poll and there's aggregate, do you support this? Do you not support this? Or which name would you like to use for our park? Like the example you gave, you can get 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, 200, 300 input points, and people can comment on that. And I think bringing engagement to people where they are, whether it's in their inbox, on the app, or on the web, however they want to use the platform, just democratizes that. I think it makes it accessible, and it's another important data point beyond those loudest voices. Absolutely.
I remember too, when we first started using it from a polling perspective, there was a lot of pushback internally in the city about, we use a national citizen survey and it's statistically valid and we spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to.
That's right.
And how do you conduct this survey? Oh, well, by mail and by phone. And that's it. And how many people answer this survey? Oh, our sample size is like 250. I'm like, 250 people out of 250,000, I could get thousands of people to answer a poll over a weekend using Nextdoor. And although it might not be as statistically valid, I can guarantee you it's more closer to the average age, the resident that, again, isn't likely to probably check their mail and fill out a full-length, long survey.
Doesn't have a landline.
Exactly. And so I'm not quite sure, again, to my point, why more people don't. And some of it is that getting rid of the old ways of we've always done it this way. We've always surveyed this way. Really thinking of it as an informational tool, like you said, but also this trust building, relationship building tool for two-way conversations. We asked, we heard you, and here's what we did about it. I'm always talking about that. Go back and then tell them. Don't just survey them, then go back on
Yeah,
Nextdoor
closed
and
loop.
tell
What did
them
you
what you
do?
did.
What decision was made? How was this input weighed? What else was considered? That's really about building trust, right? People don't trust the process. And we look at the Edelman Trust Barometer for government. It's not doing so hot right now. Like
Yep.
the more you explain the process, the more you tell people. There's a strategy I think about, and it's respect people's intellect and care out loud. Two strategies, right? Respect people's intellect, tell them what's happening, tell them what the process looks like and how things are going to be weighed, as we spoke about. And then caring out loud is closing that loop. Hey, just want to thank you all for giving input. We use your input plus these other sources, and here's the decision we made, and here's why. If you have questions about that, let me know. You repeat that process. People are like, oh my gosh, wow, that felt respectful. Like, I don't feel like I was just strong-armed, which I think a lot of people feel. There's apathy from past experiences that weren't so great. So, it's really about how you use the platform and the spirit of it. And what I see is communicators that think of Nextdoor as a customer service engagement platform, not so much a public affairs air game platform. People want to know, like, why wasn't my trash picked up? If you're going to block my road, I want to know that I can't get down it so I can plan around that. Being those sort of thoughtful communications about things that people care about, interruptions, disruptions, construction, things that impact their health or their well-being, that kind of stuff, taxes, all those kinds of things with thoughtful, timely, geo-targeted communications. You can be really successful on Nextdoor.
I love that. We use this tool, and this is another great point that you're making. You don't have to flood all of your social media channels with a road project that's impacting one small particular area in your city.
Yep.
You can talk directly, like you said, geo-target that neighborhood, that area with the information that's customized that impacts them. We had a major road closure project, and we have a major parade every year, and we would go into those specific neighborhoods and target those with messaging around the closures in their area. But not everyone that follows us on Instagram and Facebook is going to care about something that's specific to that neighborhood. I can think of another example. We had some flooding here, and I think that cities should think about this a lot with natural disasters or emergency situations where we needed to tell people where to pick up sandbags. We had to go into these neighborhoods and target them specifically because not everyone's going to the same place. What better tool to do that than using Nextdoor? So I'm a huge proponent in using it that way.
Can we go a little tactical there for a second? Because there's some things I think that's really important that people need to know. First of all, we have an alert feature, and our alert feature is super powerful. There are 4 different post types. Alerts are one of them. So there's a regular post, an alert, event, and a poll. We've talked about the poll so far, and we've talked about regular posts. An alert bypasses our algorithm. It puts that post at the very top of the feed, so public agency alerts. It creates a push notification on our app, and it sends out an immediate email. So if you've got a piece of information your community needs to know right now, whether it's the entire city or an evacuation zone or a flood zone, whatever it is, a particular neighborhood, you're going to want to use that alert post type. And then secondly, I would love to see more cities give us their evacuation zones, their flood zones, whatever that is, especially after what we saw happen in LA this year. That's crucial. And so people need to know that they live in an evacuation zone, which zone it is. They need to know where to go. And you're going to want to get ahead of that. So we've talked about geo-targeting on Nextdoor, and we've referenced targeting specific neighborhoods, but these custom areas, evacuation, flood zones, EPZ zones, if they have a nuclear facility in the jurisdiction, are all really super powerful tools. Especially, we think about the increase in severity and volume of disasters right now. You got to protect your community. You got to protect the economy. You got to protect life and property. And leveraging those custom areas and alerts on Nextdoor are really crucial. And then also coming back to the ability to see underneath where the post types are, it defaults to posts from my agency. You have 4 other post types. I'll give you a link to include that goes into detail so people can read on this. But you can also now use Nextdoor for that situational awareness from what's being posted on the platform, what are journalists talking about it. So you're getting the information out there, and you also have more visual into what's actually being communicated. Can be really powerful during a crisis.
I love that. That's amazing. You mentioned government trust obviously being at an all-time low right now, which is why I think that tools like this and the city work is so important. And defining for residents why their local government is so essential to their lives is so critical. Tell me what those conversations are on the Nextdoor side as you're serving people, understanding that you're trying to encourage cities to use your platform more, but knowing that they're running up against this level of distress that they've never seen before from residents and citizens. How do you navigate that, and what are those conversations you have on your side?
I think it's about playing the long game. It's about explaining the process. It's about involving people, taking the time to explain. We've touched on this already. Like, why did we get to this decision? What information was communicated? What is our role? What is the state's role? What is federal role? People generally don't understand that. I want to relate this to like a community meeting. A lot of folks are always trying to get people to community meetings, but the number of people who can go is fairly limited. People don't want to go. They may have a second job. They may have a commitment with their kids or their family, or, I don't know, maybe they're going for a run at that point and that's their weekly running time and nobody cuts into that. Dinner. I don't know. Yeah, there you go. So I think it's about getting ahead of investing in explaining. Let's talk about when we fill out a pothole. We've got capacity to fill out, I'm just going to make this up, 1,000 potholes a year, right? We've got a certain budget for this, and just taking the time, again, respecting people's intellect, right? And caring out loud, explaining why, closing that loop. I also frankly think, to go a little deeper here, a lot of PIOs and government communicators have been very focused on the brand, the visual aspect of the brand, the colors, the grammar, the this and the that. But at the end of the day, it's not how it looks, it's how people feel. Do they feel heard? Do they understand? Like, if I submit like a pothole, if I just call a number, I have no way of that. Was it ever closed? So I think there's some like good technology tools out there and apps that help build that trust by closing that loop and explaining where it is. Think of it as your Amazon practice, your Amazon purchase. I can see it's en route. I can see it's delayed. I don't like that it's delayed, but at least they told me. I'm not wondering where that thing is. So I think the same kind of applies for government and government communication. I mentioned this before, the customer service aspect. Like, I think we're leaning too heavily on the public affairs side and not enough on the customer service in our digital and our social communications. And I think that's across the board. And it's hard because there's pressures from city managers, council members, all that stuff to look good. But is it good? Is it working? Is there a breakdown? Great, acknowledge it. And I get that's complicated. Like this, if you're just tuning in, you're like, wow, this guy's naive. True, not that I'm naive, but true that like it's a reality they have to deal with. But that's where getting ahead of it, explaining, closing that loop really comes into play, and I think is valuable.
I could not agree with you more. And I think it is so true about branding, right? You can have the greatest brand, you can have the greatest logo. If you don't understand who your residents are and what they want from you, or how to communicate with them or message appropriately, meet them where they are, it doesn't matter. And the truth is, like you said, what people care about is that their toilets flush, their trash gets picked up,
That's right.
They know where to pay their utility bill. And some of those services are very thankless. And I think people don't realize that's your government at work for you. And so it's important that we remind people of that. But you made another point that I think is so interesting and critical. One of the things that we did in Gilbert that's very different than other cities is I brought the 311 system underneath me, and all of those touch points, like our open data portal, the website, managing social media, and all of that together, because all of those were insights that collectively could help me to better understand the resident. And a lot of times these projects get lost in IT departments in cities, or the larger the city gets, the more siloed these things get. And I think that's a real problem. If you don't know, like you said, the number of potholes, the streetlight outages that are coming through your 311 system, and that's the number one concern of your residents. And also taking that data to go through your budget process and request the staff that you need to service those amount of problems. And you aren't thinking that way. And I think most cities aren't, unfortunately. And I love that you made this point specifically, because back to the 311 example, when something goes wrong, people use 311 non-emergency to report an issue.
Mm-hmm.
And we were trying to get people to positively engage with us. So we did the holiday lights map where you could tag yourself on the system, and we gave out prizes at the end of the week. So
Nice.
you can think about using these tools in a positive way to engage people, build that relationship. And then when the crisis comes, like you talked about, and that alert, they're there. They're already there, right? They trust you. They know who you are. And it just makes your life so much easier and everyone's life so easy to communicate. But you make a great point. And I think that so many cities are still, like you said, focused on the wrong things, also aren't correctly designed to understand true resident and civic external engagement, and how that should all be coordinated together to truly give you the sense of what your residents really want.
There's this great sort of, it's used as a business framework, but it's called job theory. And job theory basically says that organizations or businesses that help people make progress towards the problems they want to solve are the ones that do better, right? Hey, buy this thing. You just want me to buy your thing. But hey, if you buy this thing, Joseph, you can paint the edge of your trim much better, which means there'll be less splattering and less cursing on your part. And then your family will be happy. That's a problem I need to solve. No, that it's a difference in how you're communicating and why, and it's focused on the customer experience. And I think that's really, just to come back to your original question, if we want to increase trust, we have to focus on the experience, and we got to, again, slow down, explain the process, and close the loop.
Yes. When I started in Gilbert, again, I've said this over and over again, but the average resident age was 32, 33 years old, and they weren't even accepting credit card payment. And this is why in so many ways that we interact with government still are so behind and so archaic. And so lean on those GovTech tools like Nextdoor to help you come into the modern world. And government agencies should be doing that and understanding. That's what people care about. That's where people are living their lives, and take advantage of those opportunities, especially the free ones like Nextdoor, that are giving you that chance to do just that and build the trust and build the relationship. I think that it really is so critical. You mentioned, we didn't get a chance to talk about it in a ton of detail, but AI, the new AI feature and the new AI tool, because I think this is another area where cities are already falling behind in not understanding it's a change of our life. It's a cultural change. It's not like a position. It's not a person. It's a behavioral change. And so using tools and features like yours on Nextdoor also can help people to understand how we can carry that into the way we serve residents through government.
Yeah, I think when we think about like operational efficiency and we think about surfacing helpful information at that point of request or interest is a whole slew of opportunities. And obviously we're doing that with neighborhood faves on the platform. There's different AI chatbots which can deflect. The reality is funding is not necessarily increasing for cities at the moment, right? Yeah. So we do need to lean into automation. We do need to lean into, frankly, to AI, but you can deflect some of those things that can be really easily answered. And I think that's one direction. The other thing too is, I hope we see in the near future, in a way we're already talking about it with the 311 information. I have a slide on my best practices deck. Like I hear, what should I communicate on Nextdoor? And that can be a really scary point. A lot of organizations like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be able to reach a whole bunch of people. They could be really mad at us. They might be. I think if you look at your 311 data, you look at your top visited websites, you look at what are the most questions being answered by my AI chatbot, right? Like all those things. If you get a sense like, hey, we really need to deal with traffic at this one intersection, go do something about that. Hey, we got some information that this was really important to you guys. Here's our plan. Here's what we're going to do. Here's by when we're going to do it. By the way, we'll give you an update in a couple of weeks as we make progress on this. If there's any questions or we miss something, let me know. Again, that kind of communication will build trust. I get that can be risky, but imagine a future where we can apply AI for all the themes and principles we've talked about, right? I don't know what that's going to look like yet, but I think those are really important questions. Like, how could that help? How could that make people more informed? How could that help public meeting be more productive? And we're not having to cover the one-on-one stuff all the time. If we can help people, if we can respect their intellect, right? And we can care out loud through AI and help bring people up so they understand. And we think about like participatory democracy, if we can help people participate in a more productive way, that could also increase trust, right? I don't know if that exists yet, but I hope it does soon.
Absolutely. And I think you're exactly right. You will find themes if you can pull all of these pieces together. I know that the city of Denver launched a chatbot, and the number 1 and 2 issues that came through were people looking for housing and looking for food. And so I would argue that, even your most vulnerable populations, and I've talked about this before, have the ability to use technology. And you can't make excuses anymore that, we're going to leave people out or leave people behind. No, we have to be thinking this way. And it's true. The commonalities that you'll see, the things that are top of the poll, the 3 top searched items on your website, the 3 number 1 themes on social media, the 3 most reported issues on 311, those will all align. I guarantee it. I've been there. I've done this work. And it's really powerful when it does, because that is the data that you have and the story you tell. And it gives you focus. It gives you purpose. It gives you the why of here's the things our residents care about. And I know I'm serving them, and I've heard from them in all these different ways.
And you'll begin to build that trust and overcome that apathy when you do that. It's about repeating that and baking it into your operations.
Quickly, tell me what's next. Now, we've just launched this app, which is amazing. I hope our listeners will go and check it out. But what do you see coming next as far as the platform goes?
I think a couple themes that are top of mind for me that I think we need to start thinking about more as a body of communicators and neighbors is my role. I'm our basically government and crisis response lead. How a couple top of mind questions are, what else can we do for each other as neighbors? That's actually been a guiding question my entire career. I want to live in a future where everybody in their neighborhood knows who on their street is going to need help evacuating or who's going to need some sort of help, right? And everybody on the street knows how they can contribute one way or another to each other. Because that connectivity makes everything work, right? We need to know who each other is, and we need to know how to communicate with each other. And so I look to a future where that really just becomes a norm. And I've had this concept I've been thinking about for a couple of years, and I call it our perimeter of care. And I really hope, the perimeter of care, expands past the one house we know and down a block or two, because we're going to need concentric circles of care as we deal with more frequent, more intense, more destructive, more costly crises. I also think as the larger theme here of AI, there's a whole bunch of things that AI can do. If we think about messaging from government, it tends to be pretty general and broad, so it's digestible and accessible to lots of folks. But the circumstances people come with problems to solve or progress they're trying to make, sometimes that messaging doesn't result or doesn't resonate with folks or isn't actionable, right? So I'd love to be able to see a future where AI is helping people. It prompts a couple questions like, hey, I understand you're trying to prepare for this hurricane. And I'm not speaking generally to any specific platform here, but
sure.
Type in your address real quick so I can give you a quick sense of what are the hazards and what's likely to happen. Great. Here's a couple things that I would prioritize. Because if we look at some of the messaging right now, it's secure your roof. Yeah, sure. Let me just go buy $40,000 in lumber and make my roof stronger, whatever. Some of that doesn't make sense, but I'd love to see AI help people understand what are the most important things they can do to prepare. And also, I think sometimes I wouldn't say sometimes, for the majority of people, based on what I've observed, it can be scary and hard to go knock on your neighbor's door. I've done some experiments with some public agencies encouraging people to ask for help, right? To say, hey, I need help evacuating, or I'm willing. Now, there's a small percentage of people that will always do that. But how can we facilitate some of those kind of relationships at neighborhood level, right? Again, I'm speaking off the top of my head here. This isn't on our product roadmap. I want to be very thoughtful about that. But I believe everybody has something to contribute and everybody needs something at different points in time. And I would love to see our platform and other platforms really help facilitate that and bring neighbors together and help them understand what they can do and how they can help each other, right? And what resources are available.
Yes. And how they can help make their local government better, how they can get more involved in it. I love that idea. And I love this whole discussion, a concept of customer experience that you and I both think is critically important to all of this work. And I hope that people on the city side will hear that loud and clear, because I think too often, like I said, things get done because they've always done it. but not with the resident in mind first. And so I hope people will think about using tools like Nextdoor and others. If you haven't started, you can start. It's easy and it's not costly, and you can start small, and you can start today, like you said, to meet your neighbors, and together we can all make our neighborhoods better. Yeah. So I appreciate you taking the time and for your support and being a great neighbor for the past decade or so that we've been able to keep in touch and follow each other's work. So I really appreciate having you.
My gosh, thanks for having me, and thanks for all the work you do convening and raising the bar for everybody.
Thank you. Thanks so much. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Ojai Stories podcast. Please leave us a 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice, and stay tuned for more episodes coming soon. And visit our website at ohaicommunications.com.